Right. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much to all of you, and welcome back for this battle today. So, just want to precise one thing. So, as the presenters will be doing their presentations and presenting the arguments for or against the cause that they will be defending, please make sure that any of the elements and any of the arguments that are not covered by our speakers, that you remember them and write that down, because after their presentations, you, as participants, are invited to come on stage, even though we don't have a physical stage. You will still be invited to come on stage and bring forward your arguments and participate to the debate by coming on stage with us. So please prepare your arguments, prepare for battle, and we are going to start right away. So we are going to have Manuel present his vision around public networks and how they are being used in financial services. So please welcome Manuel. Daniel will be then the next speakers. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Manuel Valente. I work for Coinhouse, which is a crypto broker and blockchain services company, which is based in Paris, about 10 minutes from here. We've been active since 2014, which makes us a quite old actor in this industry. I actually come from the technical world. I used to be a systems engineer, which means that I like to actually go deep into the technologies and know how they actually work. And there are a few things that I've learned from my technical experience, and some of those things are actually what works. And if we look at how the internet works, well, it's quite simple. The internet is just built upon decentralized technologies. It's quite simple. TCP/IP, which is the basic block upon which the internet works, is totally fully decentralized. DNS, which gives us the domain names and the names of each website that we visit every day, is fully decentralized. The email system is decentralized. The web is decentralized, more or less. I believe that most everything on the internet works on decentralized technologies. And why is that? Because these technologies work. Because since the advent of the internet during the 1970s, these technologies have proven that they work and that they work very well, and that they are quite adapted to this online world in which we live every day. Now, we have this new technology that is coming online and it's emerging today, which is called the blockchain. And just as every single other technology that has appeared online during the past 30 years, we have this debate about should we go the decentralized way or should we go the centralized way? I believe, of course, that we should remain as decentralized as possible for the blockchain. Why? Basically, because it works, once again, the first blockchain, the first copy of the blockchain, which is the Bitcoin blockchain, is now 10 years old. It has definitely proven that it works and that it is a very interesting way to actually exchange value and exchange data. If we look at what the blockchain actually is, if we remove all the dark magic about the trust and so on, a blockchain is just a database. It's just a way to store data, to store information. Well, we do have databases which exist since the 1970s. So what's really new about the blockchain is just a few single things that make it very, very different from existing databases. Number one, it's a database that you cannot corrupt. Once something is written on the blockchain, there's no way that anyone will be able to delete it or anyone will be able to change whatever is written on that database. Number two, it's a database that is always online. It's always available. Anyone can connect it to it at any time. Well, in order to keep those two important factors, that it cannot be corrupted and it can be kept online all the time, there's only one way that it can work. It's the way that the blockchain should be considered as something that is a commodity. that is something that is used and available for everyone. And the only way that you can make that work is if it's kept as decentralized as possible. Because if the blockchain is owned by one single entity, then that entity has full control of what kind of information can get inside that blockchain and outside, and you remove all the nice aspects about using a blockchain and those two fundamental characteristics of having something that cannot be corrupted and it's always online. That's the basic reason, the core principle of how the blockchain works, and what makes it really different from a database. If you don't need a blockchain, if you don't need something that is impossible to corrupt and is always on and always available to anyone, then just use a database. And just use Oracle or any kind of other database, which actually work, are efficient and are fast, and so on and so on. If you really need the characteristics of the blockchain that I mentioned earlier, then you need to keep it as decentralized as possible. It's as simple as that.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that you have been convinced, and I propose that we go right away with Daniel. So just give me a sec. I'm actually going to put the couple of slides there.
Okay, so I'm Daniel Ivanier. I'm the CEO of a company called Fragmos, which is a private blockchain-based platform to manage derivatives for the financial industry. And in other words, it's a third party which deals with complex transactions and which replaces back office and middle office processes inside the institutions. Okay, and my background is within banks for 20 years, hence the tie. But don't worry, usually I don't wear them. Just for you. And so what do banks or financial institutions want? Actually, they don't care about centralization or centralization. They care about performance, confidentiality, privacy. They care about simplicity, ease of implementation, cost. And this is why I think they want private blockchain and not public blockchain. So let's give one example. It's about latency performance for financial transactions between banks, financial institutions. We need a latency of about 1 second when it's about, or a few seconds when it's about post-trade management, and 1 millisecond when it's pre-trade and transactions performed or dealt in a market. As far as I know, for public blockchain, the consensus makes it much longer from 1 to 10 minutes. So there is a huge gap between both, and to me, this is not comfortable. So how at Fragmos do we answer those needs for performance and ease of implementation? 3 things. One is to rely on a private blockchain. There are 3 frameworks, basically. We have chosen one. So to avoid the publicity, I will say which one. Second, consensus. Proof of work is very heavy, very complex, 1 to 10 minutes latency, so we have chosen something which is much lighter. Third is the audit trail. We implement a full-fledged audit trail, which is key for, of course, banks and all financial institutions, which is key for regulators. Because what they sometimes lack is the audit trail for all transactions, all events, and sometimes they get regulatory report, which is incomplete, and probably in the future this kind of initiative may replace or may be added to traditional regulatory reports. So second, what do banks want? They want, first they want complexity, because this is how they make money. Or this is how they make money. This is a bit more difficult now. So they like complexity, but they love simplicity because they have to reduce costs. And today, the costs are a terrible issue for all banks. You see how many people they find at many banks, and this is a big issue, particularly because banking and wholesale banking in particular is intrinsically complicated or complex. You have KYC, you have payments, you have all middle office, back office processes, you have all regulations. This is horribly complicated. This is what I've been doing for the last 10 years, and I can tell you, I spent a few nights not sleeping because of this complexity. Okay. Today, we are very far in banks from simplicity, and the question is how to transform this complexity to simplicity. And really, I think that private blockchain is a good way for that, and not public blockchain, because it's ease of implementation, and because it's performance. And the performance based in particular in something which is a bit more about technology, it's the high-performing languages, such as Java. And this is really key to have something where you can tackle all this complexity. So at my company, so Fragmos, the way we do that is we automate, thanks to those tools, all the life cycle of those products of derivatives, trade capture, confirmation, regulatory reports, regulatory indicators, termination event, option exercise, payments, and so on and so forth. All this can be automated because we can rely on this high level languages such as Java. There are others, but I really think this is one of the most performing. And this is readily available on some private blockchains. And the other key technological point is that it's not only technology, it's about standardization. And the ISDA has done a terrific job standardizing the data model for those products. And this is also something which has been built on some languages which are readily available on private blockchains. And really, I think the guys at ISDA have done it in this spirit. So, at the final note, blockchain can help or can solve this complexity and all this inefficiency, but only if it's simple and performant. And I really think that private blockchain is a good way.
Okay, excellent. First, a round of applause, please. Okay, excellent. So we are going to use that as a foundation for the discussion. So first, allow me to oversimplify what you have just presented. So first, we had the argument that the internet is inherently decentralized, and that it makes sense for financial services to go for the most decentralized technology. Hence, the choice of selecting public networks that fit more the needs of this industry. And then on the other side, we had the arguments, very pragmatic arguments, regarding what banks really care about. And what has been exposed is that performance, privacy, ease of implementation are arguments that are more important, and so permission networks are more suitable to financial services infrastructure. So these are the main statements that we had. First of all, I would like to start with a vote. According to you, which side needs the most support from us and from you with additional arguments? Is it the public side? Please raise your hand if you think that this is the public side. Okay, a good amount of people think this is the public side. Do you think that this is the permission side that needs the most arguments? Please raise your hand. Okay, less people for the permission side. So what I would propose to you is let's begin with the public side. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to come with us on stage in order to add an argument that hasn't been stated before or raise elements in order to support public networks? And the first one gets a yellow vest. You're like Paris here, so. Yes, yeah. Yes, yes, a yellow vest.
So one word, Minitel. I think the goal for all of us in Europe is to set the foundation for innovation that can be picked up by European companies and used by them to compete everywhere in the world. If we focus on closed systems, we run the risk of creating a system that works for us, like the Minitel in France, but overtaken very quickly by the US and China, given the massive investment that are able to dedicate to this technology.
Okay, thank you. Additional arguments. So again, this is very participative, so please don't be shy. Just come with us. We are good people here. Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. Can you please say your name and organization?
Ivanier from BBC. My second argument is not the Minitel, but the email. The email is a fantastic tool that have very high complex calculation. We can go to anybody in the world very quickly, much more quickly than a credit transfer, actually, even with instant payments. And it's based on decentralized system. If a new guy in US or in Bolivia or anywhere else build a new email system, it can reach you as soon as the email is created. If you do that in private network, I know because we have tried to be a secure private network based on email in France, and I learned that it's the only thing, which is called SEPANET. It's a nightmare. So the advantage of the public system is that it's often some chaos innovation and easy to manage in the long term.
The second word, WhatsApp. There are people who have created new email systems, i.e. messaging apps, but by virtue of the economics of those systems, they are now controlled by a small number of private companies who have the ability to monitor and potentially later monetize the flows of personal data between people. So closed systems can lead to monopolies that create opportunities for exploitation later.
Okay, so since everyone is ganging up on my adversary, I'm going to have to actually defend him. And I'm going to say something that is probably not expected here, which is private blockchains are actually great. Why are they great? If you are within an organization, within a closed organization, private blockchains are great. Why? Because if you have a public blockchain, remember how these things work. Like Mr. said, okay, a public blockchain is going to take you up to between 15 seconds up to 10 minutes in order to get your transaction approved. Yeah, that's a lot. And also, a public blockchain requires you to actually pay money for each and every single transaction. Okay, we're talking about something like 10 to 15 euro cents per transaction, which is not much, which quickly can accumulate. So what I would say is that within one single organization, in which everyone trusts everyone else, a private blockchain is great because then it can be fast, it can be efficient, and it can be extremely cost effective. And I would say that such a product that was just presented within one organization in which everyone trusts each other is actually fine and actually works really well. And I say that public blockchains are much more adapted to environments where people don't necessarily trust each other. We already mentioned a little bit before things like stable coins. So if, like, Bruno Le Maire, the Minister of Economy in France, has actually stated the possible need for creating a cryptocurrency based on the euro, and so on and so on. I don't think that a cryptocurrency based on the euro could work on a private blockchain, because then it could give a lot of responsibility to one single company. I would say that, for instance, crypto euro would be very much adapted to running on a public blockchain. So obviously, different needs and different solutions for different problems.
I hope that no one feels betrayed by their champion. Let's focus on the permission side, adding arguments. So please join us. As Manuel started the conversation and shifting on the other side.
So given Daniel's so complimentary about this, I felt compelled to stand up and support his argument. So I think probably less an argument for permission than probably just identifying potential issues with permissionless. So I think people in this room are well aware of, for example, some of the regulatory issues that might arise using permissionless ledgers, like, for example, data protection and GDPR. There are other issues, legal issues and legal characterization issues, I think, that we at ISNA have been looking at, primarily in the context of permissionless ledgers. Some of those issues relate to private international law and conflict of law issues. So where you have, for example, a ledger where you have participants who are based in different jurisdictions and who are governed under different legal frameworks, there might in certain instances be some doubt, for example, as to which law should apply to activity conducted on the platform. Similarly, if the platforms are used to effect value transfer through the use of digital assets or otherwise, there may be some issues around determining the precise status of those assets, so where they're based for insolvency purposes or collateral enforceability purposes, netting purposes, etc. And these are issues that have been dealt with and looked at in the past through, for example, intermediate securities and the convention, where a legal framework exists such that the law that applies is the law of the intermediary in which the particular asset is registered. That is a more challenging analysis of some of these more permissionless distributed ledgers, because there isn't any one single jurisdiction in which necessarily in which all the participants are based. It's our understanding that at an international level, at least, there hasn't really been, there's certainly been work and discussion, but there isn't anything concrete in terms of an international treaty should not be required, or any kind of definitive analysis around the types of measures that should be taken in order to resolve some of these conflict of law issues. So to say that's something we're looking at, and we're just some work on that. So probably slightly less an argument for permission, and maybe just again one of the challenges using permissionless measures.
Any thanks? More people. We need definitely more people here. You can stay with us. You don't need to sit again.
As I'm working in the bank and a big blockchain project, we know we have a lot of regulations, but we have a lot of people complaints, people, business people, we have to learn. Blockchain is not a simple technology, but it's also a new paradigm in terms of how we will expose to our clients, and so it's quite complex. And as we must have our system compliance by design, and not design and then we show to the compliance or just to adapt and have a lot of layers to explain that it is somewhat compliant. It's very important for our teams, business, legal, compliance, and technological, to work on closed loop and not directly. If I may take an analogy, when you are learning bicycle, you are on a private lane and not on the public road or motorway. So we have to learn, and we have a lot to learn because all the structure is different, and so it's important to have a lot of projects. Even I like better myself public blockchain project, but it's important to have a lot of projects with private blockchain in order to be sure to learn and not to make some to opening the Pandora box. Because maybe in some cases we can do that. It's public blockchain.
Who is the next one to join us? Okay, so maybe you want to?
I would just like to comment on what you just said, which I think is interesting, which includes, for instance, the risks of using smart contracts. We have seen that sometimes, unfortunately, smart contracts which were poorly designed actually created a lot of issues, for instance, on the Ethereum platform. There are solutions to the problem that you mentioned. Some of the solutions that are being designed right now are things called side chains that maybe some of you have already heard about. A side chain is basically you create a new blockchain out of an existing public one, and inside that blockchain you can do all kinds of private things. You can design new ways of making it work, new ways of creating contracts, new ways of actually validating the transaction and so on. So this is also a way for people to actually try to experiment with private technology using public blockchains that might be quite useful in the future.
So I just have one more question. When you said about
Just a second. Can you please use the mic?
yeah. So no, just a question on the side chains. I don't have a technical background, so I don't know how it works. How is the validation of transactions then affected on side chains? Is that then circular validators for the main chain, or is that on the main chain?
Okay, very simple, very simple. Imagine that I'm going to take 10 bitcoins. I'm taking 10 bitcoins or 10 Ethereum, anything. And those 10 bitcoins, I'm going to lock them. I won't be able to access them anymore and so on. And at the same time that those 10 bitcoins are locked, they're going to start existing on a different blockchain. And on that new existing blockchain, which is called a sidechain, I can design any kind of rules that I want to. Right? And as soon as I want to go back to the main chain, those 10 new bitcoins are going to disappear and appear back on the main blockchain. Which makes it very nice for me to be able to experiment new ways of working, new ways of valuing transactions and so on, because I design the rules of what exists on the sidechain. And it would actually be interesting for technologies such as have been presenting today of using side chains for having a possibility to rely on the public network in order to create a new technology and have efficiency as was described. Would be an idea.
Okay, excellent, thank you very much. So I would like to just jump again on what Karen has been stating before. So he has been telling us what are some of the potential issues with public networks. Can we do the same for permission networks? I remember earlier in the discussion, Manuel was saying, hey, if you want performance, just use centralized databases. Can we have reactions on that aspect? Or maybe Daniel, you want to answer the Manuel's point?
Actually, where you use private blockchain, you could use technology standpoint central database. It's not a question of technology, merely a question of technology, it's a question of business model. It's a question of being cost effective And when you want to be cost effective, you think about security, you think about performance, you think about privacy, and you think about the fact that where you have a centralized database, you have a centralized operator. Who is the centralized operator? It's the guy who makes money. Simple. So when you have something completely centralized, you have someone who makes money instead of you. For instance, there is a study by McKinsey of CJ explaining where the money is in the banking sector. So you have three kinds. You have banks, asset managers, and the other data providers and so on. Their value added in 6 years came from 6% to 12% because they have the data and they monitor the data. It's Bloomberg, operators, exchanges, clearing houses. So those guys make money instead of bank asset managers. And if you use the centralized database, this is exactly what you have. Sometimes when I pitch to my clients, I explain to them that I am the anti-Bloomberg. Of course, I would prefer to be the but because Bloomberg, it's a wonderful business model. They take the data from their clients and they resell to them with a very high cost. This is marvelous. But you can't do that. All banks want to get rid of it. They can't because they would like to. And instead, now they prefer to have something which is in the middle road between centralized and completely decentralized, with someone monitoring, operating the platform instead of data. There you have to have a cursor in the right way to have on the one side someone who doesn't make too much money, on the other side performance and so on.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to quickly ask you 2 questions, and please raise your hand to answer these questions. So the first one is, who after this discussion changed his mind about what is the best system? Please raise your hand if you changed your mind. Absolutely no one. Okay. Oh, one person. Thank you. Okay, who in the room is even more confused than before the discussion about what system is the best? Please raise your hand. Not that much, so you're actually holding to your position. Excellent. So I think that from the discussions that we just had, there is both arguments on both sides are very valid. However, we have touched upon something about the interconnection between the different networks. And so the question I want to ask you is, what is the convergence point between public and permission networks, and how are they going to work together in the future? I told you should have stayed with us.
We don't need convergence.
Sorry?
We do not need convergence.
We do not need a convergence point. We do not need to have public one.
Why to have a convergence point? Life is not a convergence. There is no only one point. We're doing in banks a lot of projects on convergence. It's never finished. And because we make 20 years of convergence and all the standards change, system like that. We have both technology, or both system, or both paradigms. We are in a market. In a market or Darwinesque system, and the less worse, not the best, but the less worse will still exist. So we don't need to have this convergence. We need to have projects, and I'm sure maybe within 2 years, Manuel will be on another side, on another project, and Daniel is making money somewhere. So, but we don't need that.
Hello, I'm Eva from the European Crowdfunding Network. We are based in Brussels. So I'm a bit more confused. I think I'm absolutely on the public side because I think this is the real innovation, the real disruption, or can bring the real disruption in the financial system. But so far, I agree completely with the points you have said that we are really lacking the proof of concept. So which decentralized public systems do really work? So we saw it with Bitcoin. So I will not say that Bitcoin failed because it probably not fail, but it was. So we had a crash. And if we look, so your example with the internet and email, the internet is a centralized system, and it became successful when it was centralized. So in 1995, when we have all these servers, so everything in the internet has to pass by a server, which is a kind of centralization. So this is why I'm looking for successful examples on decentralized aspects. I really like it, but there is somehow proof of concept missing, and I'm looking for ways how we can find that.
A few days ago, the Ethereum blockchain passed the amount of 200,000 smart contracts stored on that blockchain. Some of them are already in production. And one of the most successful and most interesting ones is the Maker smart contract. Who has heard about Maker? Raise your hand. Great, thanks. So, you know, Maker is a lending system and a kind of a collateralization system for creating a stablecoin and so on. That thing works. Right now, Maker has something about $100 million stored within their system in order to create a stablecoin that people can use daily and so on. I would say that honestly, that's quite a successful project. There are other things that are working, and we're thinking about supply chain related blockchains and so on and so on. And they work most of the time. Those things are going to work on Ethereum. There are other blockchains, public ones, that are quite interesting to follow. The one that I would like to mention is Tezos, because Tezos is actually the first one which actually implements the proof of stake system. Something that we didn't mention in our discussion today is the actual consumption of energy of public blockchains, which is actually a problem. The fact that Bitcoin uses more electricity than most countries in the world is definitely a problem. And Tezos has managed to solve this issue using proof of stake technology. And I think that, of course, Ethereum wants to also implement that next year. So we're definitely going through this kind of iterations, and we're going there. We're implementing projects which actually work and which are actually successful. And definitely, so the question was, which kind of projects actually work nowadays? I would mention Maker, of course, I would mention Tezos, and lots of projects are coming online every day which actually answer to those questions.
Hello everybody, Chiara Mazzone from the European Commission, DG Connect, where I want to speak in my personal capacity. And can we disagree with something that's been said before on the convergence? As you put forward a question. I think honestly that we need convergence because convergence is difficult to achieve at the beginning, but it's much easier and profitable when you have achieved it, if ever. Otherwise you go through endless standardization and interoperability issues. And in that respect, to support my point, I will ask the private permission part that is there in the room as well. How would you make a global financial system work if you don't have convergence, and until which point you may not still have any convergence for the financial system working? Of course, we will not look at blockchain, we know this, but it's a general question. And second thing, how would you convince regulators, since I'm on that part, to join a private network and why yours? I think that's a fair point to be asked to private consortium.
Convergence is important, but competition is even more. Because competition prevents you from having someone with a monopoly taking all the money from everybody else. you must find the fine line between both. And this is something we spend time with the banks discussing about. Some say, okay, I want one provider at the end of the day. I'm really convinced there won't be one. In this area I was presenting, my feeling is that there will be 2 or 3, not 5, because in terms of cost, it's not efficient at all. Not 1, because at first it will be very efficient, and after 5 years, the guy who is operating the thing will be very rich and not the other ones. So you must find some convergence on the technology standpoint, on the data model standpoint, on some areas, but don't fool yourself. The full convergence will never happen, and more I think it's not something we should wish. And of course, I'm talking with people from the Commission who think that competition is very important.
Any additional points before we wrap up this session?
It's also a question on the public blockchain. You alluded to the energy consumption.
Could you please state your name and organization?
So Manuel, just be representing myself. You mentioned the energy consumption in blockchain technology, and on the public blockchain, where is this funding coming from? How is that being, the cost to run the public blockchain, how is it funded?
It's funded through something which is called mining. So unfortunately, explaining mining is going to take me up to 10 minutes. But I encourage you to actually look up how mining works, and how mining works on what is called the proof of work on public blockchains, especially Bitcoin and Ethereum. So basically, those guys who are running the system are actually creating money out of thin air, and that's how they run their operation.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Thierry Amadou. I'm representing DSG, which is a CFO association. So I'm not specifically technical, but I see a domain where there is some convergence is KYC. It's very famous for this. Particularly for anti-money laundering. So I see some combination of centralized and decentralized system in the money structure. They will be, we will have some guys like those you mentioned, Reuters or Bloomberg, that get the data, and on that some blockchain where you have mutual trust between business entities. So do you share my view of that sort of convergence in that domain?
Not at all. Sorry about that. I think that there are really interesting projects, although those are really experimental at this point. Basically, the idea is identity and blockchain. How can we make these two things mingle? Especially considering the GRDP and all these things. Remember what I said in the beginning. Once you have written something inside the blockchain, there is no way you can ever delete it. That can pose a lot of problems. That doesn't happen, of course, in a private blockchain. You just ask the owner of the private blockchain to actually delete the data, and it should be able to comply. On a public blockchain, there is no way for anyone to actually delete one single octet on a public blockchain. Although there are solutions. For instance, you can encrypt the data. And there are a few projects which are quite interesting, which actually start having the idea that people should own their own data. I should own my data. I shouldn't have to actually trust a given company to actually store the data of my health or my financial information and so on and so on. So the idea would be that everyone should have the right, should have the possibility to actually enter the data that concerns himself or herself on a public blockchain. And then whenever you have a company, whenever you have a bank or a state actor which needs to access that information, you should be able to actually provide that information on a case-by-case basis in order to provide the information that such and such entity needs to access. And I think that this way of actually storing your own private information in a decentralized way is also a potential way that the blockchain is going to be a real revolution on the way that we access and we store our own data.
If I can add a little bit about that, because I was in charge of this kind of things a few years ago in a bank. And KYC, AML, all those stuff, the issue that it's not about private or public blockchain or any technology topic at all. It's about governance and data ownership. And in banks, you have people who will never allow to share their client data with anybody else. Never. So as long as they are in banks, it just will not happen. I had extensive discussions when I was in a bank, speaking with other guys in other banks. They were very happy talking with each other until some people in their organization just said to them, just stop talking with those guys. We don't want to share. And even today, there are many, many people who don't want to share anything about their client data. So since I'm very optimistic, I think 10, 15 years from now, it will happen. But not before. And this is really a shame, because in terms of cost effectiveness, KYC is the single most promising area. And would I not be having this conviction about the difficulties, I would be the one doing this business.
If I add something on data, Bezos has been mentioned, but there is also a project very interesting which is called Elixir from the show. The idea is not to protect only data, but metadata. A lot of people don't know. Metadata is when you send an email, it's your email, and the email of the counterparts. These are not protected. These are free to everybody. So even if you create your email, and the email is yours, nobody can see it, you do that on your PC and everything on the other side. The metadata is more information than the data in the email. And the idea of this new blockchain initiative also is also to protect metadata. And so far, the governmental agencies, as we may call them, they are more interested in metadata, that is making networks, graphs of people, of relationship, than actual data. And this is quite important also. So maybe in some years we will also have a protection of not only data but metadata.
All right. One last statement, and we are going to move forward.
I would just like to emphasize what has just been said about email, and adding that it's exactly the same thing with DNS, which means that your provider or even the government or whoever has the possibility to look up whatever website you're going to look from your computer or from your mobile phone. So I definitely agree that metadata is definitely an issue.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think that we can safely say that there is no clear winner in this battle, and the reason for it, and the reason for it is because excellent arguments were made on both sides. So thank you very much to our champions. have minutes to do the conversation. We are going to have a quick break of 2 to 3 minutes and then move on to the next battle.